What is up, you guys? Welcome to Illumination Lab. My name is Justin, and today we're going to tunify this Blimp asset from Kitbash. Kitbash was running a competition this last month with their Secrets of Lumeria kit, so we're going to take the ship and redesign it to make it have more of a overall toon look. In this video, we'll make these toon materials and play around with textures to help drive in the look that we're really trying to go for. So I'm excited for this one. This is gonna be a fun one today. So without further delay, let's get into it. Alright, so jumping right into cargo here, we're just going to bring in our ship and we're just going to load that in here to Cinema4d, and we got that here. So pretty easy here. You just have to kind of connect Kitbash with Cinema4d and it's pretty seamless. So I'm just going to get into perspective here. I'm just going to bring in our Redshift render view, press play, and just jump into our perspective. And so immediately you could kind of see the materials are off. I threw in a dome light, so we're just going to throw in a Redshift render tag and we're just going to turn on our geometry, and that's going to kind of help us fix that geometry there. So I'm just going to kind of place this a little bit more in the middle here, just so we could kind of see this whole ship. I'm just going to bring in a Redshift camera and kind of lock that into place so we can kind of move this around here. So we'll probably start like this so we can kind of get a few different perspectives of this. Opening up our asset, we have a ton of different materials. So we're just going to try to identify which material is which, and then we're slowly going to replace them with some toon materials here. So I'm just going to go and select our toon material. All right, to start off here, I think we're going to start with the hull here, which is essentially the body of the ship on the very bottom here. Let me jump into this toon material. And first thing that we're going to do is we are just going to select our contour and just increase our thickness to about 5 here. And then we're just going to change our reflection tone map here, just so it's a little bit more equal. And then let's see, I'm just going to change the color to more of a red, similar to how it was here. Since this is going to represent a heavier material, we want to have a little bit more thicker lines to really help portray weight. So that is looking good. Next, we're going to find a few different textures here. So I think something like a dry ink texture would look cool here. I'm just going to plug that into our bump map here. And essentially with this is going to kind of represent some dirt or some sort of grime that's on the bottom of this boat here. And so initially you could kind of see that within the render view here. And then I'm just going to go into the base tone map here, and I'm just going to delete some of these just to have it relatively simple here. There's not going to be too much detail, but we're just going to kind of push more for just kind of a basic overall tone, not a ton of different lighting. And so this is going to kind of make it more of a somewhat basic toon look here overall. So what I'm going to do is just hop into our perspective, and I just want to see what this looks like up close. Just going to kind of take a peek here. So it's interesting, it changes a bit as we change our perspective. So let me see what we can do. And it's going to be especially important as far as our overall perspective goes when we go to render what it's going to look like. So let me actually go back into our thickness and just drive that up. And same with our external as well. All right, and so what I'm going to do is just bring in some sort of area light here, and we're just going to kind of see what this looks like with our area lights. And so as I kind of move this across this boat here, you can kind of see that the light definitely influences how this looks overall. And so as I kind of go up, you kind of see more of that texture kind of appear near the bottom. So with knowing that, we could kind of manipulate our lights here to really drive in a overall look that we're going for. And so I think what's going to be extremely important is just establishing our overall perspective, just so we can kind of play within that view and have the correct look going forward. So we're just going to kind of leave that be for right now. We'll actually create this new material here. So I'm just going to bring in a new toon material, and we're just going to kind of work on the top of this boat here. And so you could kind of see that within the render view here. So I'm just going to open up our node editor here and then just kind of zoom out. I'm just going to find some sort of texture within Grayscale Gorilla, and I think something like this would look quite nice. So I'm just going to plug that in to our bump here, and then I'm just going to go over to our contour and just kind of move that over to about a 3 here. And then let me just kind of zoom out, just see what that looks like. And then next up, I'm just going to bring in another material here and then just apply this as well. And then same thing, just go into our node editor. I'm just going to change this to more of a gray color. And then just go over to our contour and just kind of drive this up. And with a lot of this process here, it's going to take quite a bit of time just kind of playing around with this, just to kind of see the overall look of the actual ship here. And so whenever playing around with a lot of these toon materials, definitely expect that you're going to take a lot of time just kind of playing around with it, just to see what overall look you want, just because there's so many things you could do within this, or there's so many directions you could go into. You can always just accidentally find something new. And so especially with importing an asset like this, where you have something with a lot of materials already, it is going to take quite a bit of time. So just kind of know that going in. So next up, what I think we're going to do is just find some sort of material for actual balloon parts of this ship. And then I'm just going to hop into the node editor here. We're really going to increase that thickness to about 4 here. And then we're going to find a cool looking texture here. And I like this frost texture. I think a lot of the frost texture kind of gives more of a grittiness to the overall look. So I like that quite a bit. I think we can maybe add in something like this as well too. And then I'm just going to bring in a bump blender here and just disconnect this, and then just attach our bump blender, and then just attach our textures into the bump blender here. And then we're just going to increase the weight on this, and I'm just going to push this up to about 3 or so. I'm just going to reconnect this into our first layer, and then I'm just going to put that to a 2, and then I'm just going to increase our inputs to a 1 across the board here, and then just kind of fix our tone map here. And so if you look at the render view, it has this nice, almost like a penciled look here. It looks quite nice. I'm just going to kind of bring this to more of a somewhat of a darker yellow. We could go black, but I think like a darker yellow would look pretty interesting, just kind of like a older canvas. So I think that would look pretty good. I really think we could do a little bit more with this to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm just going to go to our base tone map and just take this off real quick. And then we're just going to go back into our contour and push this up to a 6. 10 is a little much. I think we'll maybe push this back to a 5. I think some sort of rope color would look nice on top of that more neutral color there, so I think that will be cool. Again, just jumping over, grabbing a toon material. All right, so with this material, we're just going to apply it here, and this is going to be the overall outline of the windows here. And so I'm actually going to go in and change it to more of a deep red here. I'm actually going to zoom in so we can actually see it a little bit more. I'm just going to bring up the node editor, and we're just going to increase that thickness. And then we can do something like a brown here, or more of like a darker gray, and then reduce the thickness for our external here. But what I'm actually thinking here is I'm not sure how this is going to look overall. We have a dome light that is kind of giving this overall light across the scene. So let me see what this looks like if I turn this off and just have a single light source here. And let me just kind of increase the size of this area light and just kind of move this across here. And then, like I said before, I think establishing some sort of perspective is going to be essential, especially when applying a lot of these materials. We might be applying some materials to parts of the ship we might not see overall. And so I think it would be important to establish some sort of perspective. So I think maybe having it where we can have like a perspective from the bottom of the ship, I think that would be pretty cool here. So something like this. Let me see, we could do something from the side and kind of zoomed in here, just like that, and then have something in the kind of like in the foreground to kind of show where we're going. So there's a few different things we could do there. Actually increase the size of our viewport here, and then just kind of, let me zoom in. I think maybe something from the bottom would actually be pretty interesting, especially with these ships. They are flying in the sky and you can have people looking up to them here. So I think something from down below could be pretty interesting. And then just kind of bringing in some sort of sky texture. So let me do that now. Let me grab some sort of like toon looking sky and we'll just import that in here. All right, so I found this one here. So this one is pretty interesting, and I just put that into our dome lights, and then I'm just going to bring in a redshift camera here and just lock in our perspective. And then let me actually delete this area light, and then what I'm going to do is just select our dome light, and we can just kind of turn this, and depending on what kind of clouds or what kind of background we want, kind of have that. I think I kind of like darker clouds here. Yeah, I think I like that. You do have a little bit more of like the lighter sky near the bottom right here, but overall you have kind of more of a darker overall look. I think that will be cool, especially when we drive in a lot of these lights here. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to bring in the area lights. Let me just bring back this area lights. And again, we can kind of change how our materials are interacting here, or what the overall look looks like, just kind of manipulating a lot of these lights here. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to start out with this light here. I'm just going to copy and paste, bring this over, and then we can have something at the front here. But having something in the front does kind of make it fall a little flat here. So let's see if we can kind of manipulate this so it kind of shows a little bit more volume and more of a 3D look. So I think something like that would be good here, and then just shrinking this down, we could kind of create our own highlight here, and then we can move this other area light to maybe about right here. And so this gives us this really nice shadow here, especially at the front of our ship. And then we have this really strong shadow near the bottom. So again, that kind of provides that 3D dense volume look there. So that is quite nice. I'm going to bring in a spotlight here, and I'm just going to turn on our LUT here. And then we can find some sort of LUT that kind of helps push out that look that we're really trying to go for. I like this because it's a little bit more gritty here. Kind of helps with the overall darkness of the sky here. Let's see some of these other ones. There is this one that really helps pop out the colors. There's this gold one. I think I kind of like this warm honey one. I like this because it kind of adds a bit of a warmness to the scene here. However, I'm just going to kind of reduce the LUT strength so it's not as strong here. Yeah, so about there, somewhat in the middle. So it helps kind of drive in a little bit more of a overall warm tone, especially with having that really darker, cool background. So that is a pretty interesting look there. And really helps kind of bring in that balloon as well too. So that is cool. Let me just grab this spotlight here, and now we can really get into some of these details. Let me just turn on the flare, and I'm just going to kind of bring this down here. And then I think right about here is nice. We can play around with a lot of these different sliders here. And I like that sort of bloom look that is kind of going across that ship, and also onto some of the balloon there. So that's a nice reflection that we can kind of add in. All right, so now that we know our general perspective, what we can do is just kind of go back into some of these materials we already made and really just kind of enhance them here. So I'm just going to go into this material, and then I'm just going to bring in a few more textures here. I think something like this would work well. And then maybe something like this. So we're just going to kind of plug that into our bump blender here, and then we're just going to crank up that weight, and then let me just bump this up to 1 by 1 by 1, and then you could kind of see a little bit more within the render view. Kind of bring this down. And then I'm just going to jump into perspective here. And then you can kind of see that it is our perspective that's really kind of driving in a different look here. So we can kind of go back in, just change this real quick. And then what I'm actually going to do is just delete this. Think maybe having one texture, but plugging in this texture to a few different layers can kind of give us more of a subtle look here. And so I'm just going to increase our weight here. And so in the render view, you can see all those different dots there. So something that is somewhat subtle and will probably kind of be somewhat good within our perspective. I'm just going to bring in this texture here. I'm gonna see if I can kind of work with this one. So immediately when we jump back into our perspective, again, we do see the weights of the item where we have more of a darker look near the front, and then it kind of lightens up near the back there. So I like that. It kind of, again, more of a more grungy sort of look here, so that is quite nice. What we could also do is bring in a area light and just kind of make this more into a sphere. And then just bring this up and then just kind of apply some sort of light here. Again, really playing with a lot of different warm tones with that cooler back tone. I think having something in the middle here and then making it visible, and then we could kind of change how much this is illuminating, but having not necessarily like fire, but having some sort of a warm light here kind of in the middle would kind of add a nice little touch, especially with our bloom effect on. That's going to give us a really nice glow here. So just going to kind of reduce that here, and then let me just turn off the visibility and just increase the intensity. Also, let's change this glass here. We still haven't used this glass, so let me actually give it a quick save. I'm just going to hop into the Redshift library here. We're just going to type in glass, and then I'm just going to bring in this glass material, and we're just going to apply that to the window here. And then to kind of drive in a little bit more life, what we could do is just copy and paste our light here and then just kind of bring this inside. And so that gives it a nice sort of lifelike element where we have some sort of light inside of the cabin here. And we could just kind of put this somewhere in the middle. Maybe something like that. Cool. So that is looking a little bit better here. We can kind of play around with the rest of our lighting here just to make it a little bit more dynamic. Actually, what I'm going to do is just delete this light. So I'm just going to bring in a spotlight, rotate this, and then just kind of crank up the exposure here. And then I'm gonna do one like maybe here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste and kind of bring this one maybe about here. Let me just kind of turn this off to see what this looks like. Let me see. Let me just put this one here, and then I'm just going to kind of move our area lights around. About there, and then just kind of re-establish our perspective. Just zoom out, and then for our camera, I'm just going to plug in our object, turn on bokeh, and then just kind of set our focus. Next up, what I'm going to do is just bring in a new toon material, and we're just going to apply this toon material to the side here. Yeah, this one here. And then we're just going to go in. I'm gonna have it more of a gray so it seems a little bit more worn. And then just really bump up the contour on this. Just again, since it is a little bit heavier, we're just going to really help kind of push out those lines a little bit more. And then next up, I'm going to bring in some sort of material, and we're just trying to find something that kind of is a little dirty here. So maybe something like this one. And then I'm just going to apply that to our bump. And again, that kind of really helps out with that overall dirty, grimy look here. So again, let me just kind of delete some of these so we don't have as much detail. But overall, that is pretty much what we're looking at. Of course, we can kind of continue to play around with the ship, just kind of create some different looks here. But I think that is pretty much what we're rolling with. Real quick, let's hop into the wrap-up section and finish this off. All right, so jumping into the wrap up, this is the overall render I decided to go with. Overall, I had some fun with this one. I'm going to probably go back in and kind of fix this up quite a bit, but I just want to kind of show you guys what I was working on here and kind of showing you the initial render. What I want to do is just really go back in and kind of fix especially the bottom of the ship. It looks not as good as what we did in the beginning, so I really want to help kind of drive in a better look near the bottom of the ship. But I think overall we're really working towards more of a kind of a grungy sort of looking ship here, so looking pretty good so far. So let me know what you guys think. I had a lot of fun with this one. I'm excited to kind of finish this up. Other than that, you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.